Namaskar, friends. This is Shekhar Mayanil here with a brand new episode, number 11 of Sri Bharat CharitAmrit Sindhu. So, before I start, let me bow down to Hanumanji Maharaj and, of course, Ganeshji, without whose blessings I don't think I can move an inch. So, let's start with today's episode and let me share the screen. So, today's episode is Bharat-Milap with Sri Ramji in Chitrakoot is actually aimed at re-establishing the integrated functioning of the brain. So what happened was Sri Ram had left for the forest, and Bharatji is almost very disturbed. And he said, there is no other way, there is any good for me other than to see my brother Sri Ram and bring him back again and make him the king of Ayodhya. That's the only way. He said that देखे बिनु रघुनाथ पद जिय के जरन न जाए. No, without seeing his lotus feet, there is absolutely no way my heart will ever feel happy about it. So he said that हित हमार सियपति सेवकाई. हित हमार सियपति सेवकाई जो हर लीने मातु कुटिलाई. He says, my benefit is only in serving the Lord. Siyapati Sevakai, Seva of my brother. There is no other way. So now, Sri Ram represents consciousness, right? And Sri Bharat ji represents super metacognitive intelligence. Now, super metacognitive intelligence cannot function without consciousness. That's the base of this entire re-establishing the integrated functioning of the brain is. The integration of the functioning can only happen if super metacognitive intelligence derives its energies from consciousness. So this is what Bharatji is saying, that right now I am completely bereft of that consciousness, which means Ramchandraji is not there for me. Hence, I can't function. It's forget about me. No more, no metacognitive intelligence. So before we go ahead and discuss this re-establishment of brain functioning, let's dwell a little bit on the relationship between King Dashrath and Kaikeyi, like in the context of our brain physiology. Now, in the previous episode, we have already discussed that Kaikeyi represents that part of the anterior cerebral artery which feeds the the prefrontal cortex, somatosensory cortex, little bit, and other areas of the brain. And if that is messed up, what happens to the brain physiology? That's what the whole idea is. Why brain physiology we are discussing? Because we have lost the integrated functioning. Integration functioning means the entire brain working in unison. Right now, that is not possible because people have been living unconscious, unaware, and non-alert, right? That's the reason. Now, as I told you, remember, this portion is the prefrontal cortex. And this is the domain of Kaikei also, right? This is Bharatji's domain, and that's obviously Bharatji is born here, so it is his domain as well. So now, and this portion, this brainstem portion, which means this is medulla oblongata and this is the pons and this is the brainstem. This whole thing is basically the primitive brain, which is a domain of Dashrathji. Okay. Now, this particular domain of the Shraddhi is what controls the breathing, the heart rate, the blood pressure, and the overall tone of consciousness. Now, if this is compromised, that is exactly what has happened to in Ayodhya. That Dashrathji's Pons has been hijacked. Actually, he is dead, which means none of this is working in Ayodhya right now. People are suffocating, actually. That is exactly what is happening. Now, why I brought this is in the during the brain development, there is a stage when the brain stem, this part of the area, gets including the limbic system. Now, this particular area as well as this whole circular area here, this whole circular area, this is a limbic system, gets connected to the prefrontal cortex. This is the part of the brain which gets connected to this. So during this brain development, independently, these are developed at a point in time. This is developed independent of this. But there comes a time when these and this gets connected. And that's what is responsible for planning, anticipation of the future and all that. So this is a stage in brain development which coincides with the timing when Kaikeyi requested the fulfillment of two boons from King Dashrath. How beautiful this is. So this particular part of the brain development, it's coinciding with that particular time when Kaikeyi requested the fulfillment of the two boons. Kaikeyi will represent the anterior cerebral artery. We remember in the last one or two episodes, I think I discussed this. The anterior cerebral artery, which nourishes parts of the limbic system on the top of the parts of the limbic system on the top of the brain stem, which is represented by the Dashrathji, right? Now, if the anterior cerebral artery is blocked, who has blocked it? Manthara has blocked it. Then the person loses the ability to plan rationally. And that is exactly what Kaikeyi was a very sweet person, very nice. And Ramchandraji loved her and she loved Ramchandraji too. But what happened? Some contamination happened. Some poisoning happened by people of a very low thinking had contaminated a mantra, for instance. And that's why she started to plan wrong. She started to plan I, me, and mine rather than for the general people and others. And others don't are not important anymore. That is the contaminated thinking of mantra. Only me, I, me, and mine. How is it better for me? What's in it for me? That type of thinking. Now, this limbic system, this portion, that whole red portion, the circular area here, that above the brainstem, this is the brainstem, form a circular structure in the middle of the brain. And this is involved in emotional behavior, feelings, and considered to be the seat of consciousness, subconscious motivation and instincts and desires, right? So this is just to give you a clear picture of the inside structure of the limbic system. This whole thing is that limbic system and composed of hypothalamus, amygdaloid, hippocampus, and the cingulate gyrus. All these beautiful structures are basically primitive brain. Okay. So what are the two boons in terms of brain development? Bharatji, number one boon is to become the king. Now, that becoming the king in neurobiology language is basically to become independent prefrontal cortex, to establish independence of prefrontal cortex, right? That is what it is. If Bharatji is to become the king, then it means that I want to establish 100% independent prefrontal cortex. Now, and the second boon was exile of Sri Ram for 14 years. In neurobiology language, it is called expansion and integration of the motor cortex which makes movement happen, sensory cortex which senses the impulses from outside the world, and the insular cortex which is the zone of compassion and kindness and all those things. This is where Ramchandraji was born, at the level of insular cortex, right? Now, this expansion with the rest of the rest of the brain, the entire of the sensory motor and insular cortex with the rest of the brain equates to 14 years actually. So why the order was reversed? Why the order was reversed? Sri Ramji or Dashrath could have even asked. I said, listen, Kaikeyi, what I want, see, since you have asked Bharatji to become the king, let's bring Bharatji from his maternal uncle's place and let him make the king first. Let him become the king and then we'll send Ram to the forest. But the order was reversed. What happened? Sri Ramji went to the forest first and did not wait for Bharatji to assume the throne. Why? Because now this part of the portion is most important in the entire talk, I would say. Because the brain develops in distinct stages in different time periods, right? A child initially gains mastery over motor and sensory functions. The first 14 years of his life till he becomes teenager, right? The first 14 of his years of his life is basically to get mastery over motor and sensory functions. And only later he begins to wonder who he is and what the role in life he should be playing and what are the so this this thinking, what should I do in my life, what courses should I take, or what should I become, or what should I do in my particular life, this who am I, those kind of questions erupt when you are 13-14 years old of age. So this is a prefrontal cortex uh, role, not the sensory cortex. But before the prefrontal cortex gets established in our brain development timing, it is the sensory and the motor cortex that gets developed first, and then only the prefrontal cortex develops. So prefrontal cortex is a little advanced aspect of our brain, very much advanced. So it is still under the process of evolution. So that's what it is. So this is the reason why the role the order was reversed. Now I understand. Now, re-establishing the integrated functioning of the brain. To re-establish the integrated functioning of the brain, it is imperative to have one command center controls all the area of the brain. One command center controls all the areas of the brain. And such an area is represented by Pons, which is the command center. Right? The central command center is the Pons. This particular area, which is pinkish in color, this is the one which is the which has almost it looks like almost like a small mountain range resembling Chitrakoot mountain, right? It is a small but vital brain structure that houses bunches of nerve fibers. Now, these nerve fibers are called association fibers, connect both the left and the right hemispheres. The left hemisphere, the right hemisphere, and this portion just below it, I would say, is the cerebellum. They make it possible for the structure to send messages, including the sensory, the motor information back and forth. So from the left to the right, and from the right and the left into the cerebellum, all the brain connection that gets association fibers connected to all the parts of the brain. So that is exactly what Pons does. There is no message going inside the brain which does not go through Pons. It is a very important area in our central nervous system. So without the Pons, it is impossible to move or communicate. So if Pons is compromised by some mechanism, it's over. So that's what it is. So Bharatji's journey to Chitrakoot, what is it? What is Chitrakoot? Let's start to know what is Chitrakoot and why Bharatji's journey to Chitrakoot is so important. Number one, Chitrakoot is a place for Yoga Sutra. That's the place for Yoga Sutra. The place suggested by Rishi Valmiki to Sri Ram, Lakshman and Sita to stay during their exile. So when they were going to the forest, they happened to be in the Chitrakoot area. Chitrakoot is a very scenic and beautiful place. Very beautiful. Now, Ramchandraji asked Valmiki Rishi, where should I stay? There is a very sweet episode in Ramcharitmanas, which I will discuss some other time, as to where should I stay. And Valmiki Rishi just, I mean, it's juicy. It's so beautiful. I'll discuss that some other time. He said Chitrakoot is the most beautiful place for you to stay. Because why? Because it is a sadhana bhumi. It is a, all the rishis are self-realized sages, and like such as Valmiki ji, Vashishta ji, Atri ji, Anusuya ji, they have been doing sadhana in that area is so much charged with sadhana. That's why you should stay here. This is a beautiful place for you. Now, what is a Yoga Sutra? The place for Yoga Sutra means association. Yoga means association is another word. Another meaning of yoga is association, or to make it one. Oneness. Oneness is yoga, right? And sutra is fibers, like the sutra means dhaga, uh, the fibers. So association fibers, or what in the brain it is connecting the left hemisphere, right hemisphere, cerebellum, and the left and the right. All these things are connected, and they pass through Pons, right? That is Pons means Chitrakoot. So this association of what? Which fibers? Fibers of communication, network, and connection between the people of Ayodhya and Sri Ram. Now that connection has been severed, has been distorted, has been destroyed by Mantra and the death of King Dashrath. So that has completely um, uh, taken away all the network and connection between consciousness and metacognitive intelligence, consciousness, and the people of Ayodhya. So Bharatji's role is to go and get charged or get that consciousness back to Ayodhya. That is his goal, so that the entire integrated functioning of the brain can be restored. So this is what, and the next episode we'll talk about how what Bharatji's journey is all about. That journey is self is sadhana, and we'll dwell into every small episodes of in the way Bharatji is doing his sadhana while on his way towards consciousness. So we'll discuss that. Thank you so much, and infinite gratitude and thanks to everybody who has been watching this show. And I am infinitely grateful to everyone who have subscribed to Yogic Realization channel and supporting a mighty cause of reaching out to everyone with a totally new neuroscientific interpretation of Sri Bharat Charitamrit Sindhu. I am so thankful to you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate everybody watching. And stay tuned for the 12th episode, which is so juicy. It is so wonderful. And you will know how Bharatji's movement is similar to how the neurons make connection to another neuron. That is the one of the things which I saw, and I said, man, this is exactly how neurons also migrate when they are making connections to other neurons, which is basically target neuron, which is it is represented by Sri Ram, and Bharatji is bringing, and with all the people. So one is the leader neuron, and another are the follower neuron along the side of the leader neuron. So it's so wonderful. So just stay tuned. Thank you so much.